trecem pe limba engleză de aici încolo. Craig, please join me. What are you going to talk about today?
Yeah. It's a very good question.
Okay.
I'm going to be here to talk a little bit about what it means to give a pitch. It's something that I work with many companies on a regular basis. So it's about finding what is the core aspects of a pitch and how can you bring that out and how can you train yourself to be more effective at pitching. Because a good pitch is something that you do regularly on a regular basis, whether or not it's a negotiation about who does a particular task or whether or not it's about getting an investment into supporting a development of a business. So the formula is fairly similar, and the tools that you can use are easily to understand. So my goal today is to simply introduce you to a simple concept that you can hopefully take away and implement in your next pitch.
Okay, you have half an hour.
I will
maximum.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
I appreciate that I'm at this particular stage where everyone's feeling a little bit tired and is looking forward to a little bit of networking. So hopefully I'll keep it light and entertaining. The first thing I want to say is that why am I here? You know, because I've been asked a few times, Craig, why are you here? And I have to say it was a beautiful sunny day, and I was with Liviu. We were drinking a nice cold beer. It was an Augustiner, if I remember correctly. And it was on Kaiser Josefplatz. It's like a market square in the middle of Graz where all the farmers come in the morning and they sell their wares. And it's overlooked by an opera house, which is like, essentially, it's the cultural heart of the city. And I was there and Liviu started to turn around to me and he said, "Hey, Craig, I want to tell you a little bit about this initiative that I have. It's called the PitchIMM Club." And he goes, I want to have you involved somehow. So here I am. I'm his British butler. Okay, that was an attempt. Okay, so I'm here. I'm going to try and go through this relatively straightforward and quickly. So first thing is, who's the most powerful person in the room?
I am.
Who is the most powerful person in the room? So. Yeah, I mean, if you look at Game of Thrones, Cersei, remember she was having this discussion with Littlefinger, and Littlefinger says, "Oh, you know, he's like the spy, he's master manipulator," and Cersei comes along with his guards and says, "Cut off his head, stop."
We call it these days the elephant.
The elephant, yes, yes. So, no, tell me.
Well, the problem that we have generally.
The elephant in the room. Okay. Well, the thing is that I don't know if you've ever experienced this. You've gone into a meeting and the person who actually is grabbing everyone's attention is the one who's actually telling stories. It's the one who's telling the narrative and expanding on their ideas, and they're sharing story, and they have people drawn in and they're engaged and they have all of their focus. And this is something that makes them extremely powerful and influential in any given workspace. I want you to think a little bit about maybe the last time you came in on a Monday morning and you saw your colleagues and your colleagues turned around to you and said, "What did you do over the weekend?" Now, at this particular point, you have two types of colleagues. You have the one who turns around to you and says, "It was fine. I rested." Okay? And then you've got the other one who starts to elaborate and tell you about how they had done incredible preparation. They managed to get the family in the car. They drove 3 hours on an adventure, stopping on the side of the road for a picnic, etc., etc. And they grasp you. They really pull you in. Those are the people who you're paying attention to. So telling stories is extremely important. So this is the picture of the person telling the story in the room. And actually, here's another question I have for you, okay? Which is, again, how do we communicate and convince others that what we do has value?
It's a hard task.
It is a hard task.
It's correct what has the data behind, can be proven, and is catchy, is interesting.
Yeah.
Not only for the person speaking, but also for the audience.
Yes, absolutely. It's a very interesting case. I was having a discussion out before. We was talking a little bit about, I had a company before, and we talked a little bit about our sales approach. and how it was so important to understand the data in order to be able to correctly position the product that we were selling to the customer. So that's one way. That's true. But I'm hopefully not going to fool you here, but I'm going to say we tell stories. Again, it's the thing that we do that helps us to create value. That if we are prepared to put attention into the story and the narrative, it grabs value. Okay, and I'm hopefully going to be able to demonstrate this to you a little bit. Okay, so we saw this before, earlier. We had this gentleman talking to you about his books and how he's discovering stories that come from the past about entrepreneurialism here in Romania. And doesn't it do something for you? It makes you feel a common sense of pride. It's bringing you together. You feel good and strong because of these narratives. They're very important. Okay, I want to show you this particular picture here. This is actually a picture from the book by Lewis Carroll, and it's from one of my favorite books. It's Alice in Wonderland. And in this particular scene, Alice is getting to see one of the more eccentric characters within the book. It's actually the Mad Hatter. And you've got the Dormouse and the Marsh Hare here. And in fact, in English colloquial expression, mad as a hatter is a very light-hearted colloquial expression to suggest that somebody's insane or crazy, right? Exactly. I think it's possibly...
I'm repeating because I want to make sure I understand.
Yes, Mad Hatter. And the reason why that comes about being the case is because back in the 18th century, when hat makers were producing hats, they were essentially working with felt that was treated with mercury. They were getting mercury poisoned. And that was having a massive impact on the structure of their brain and changing, and very often they were sort of misdiagnosed and seen as rather eccentric and crazy people, whilst actually they were suffering from an ill of the time. Okay, but within this very short story that I've just told you about, a picture on the wall here, you've learned something about what I value, something that I like. You've learned something about what's actually happening here and a couple of the characters. You've also gone into a little bit of historical background where we've talked a little bit about the production of hat making and mercury and the link between mercury poisoning and neurological conditions. So there's a lot of information that we've been able to pack in, and I'm pretty sure the next time you see Alice in Wonderland or think of the Mad Hatter, you'll have a much more in-depth understanding of this particular period of history. Okay, so what we've learned is that stories and telling stories is a great way of sharing ideas, your aims, results, and also your values. And I think that this is something that has to be told well. If you are that person who's listening to somebody who's telling stories, very often it's a great way to for them to express themselves. And you actually learn a lot about the person by the way in which they tell the stories as well. Okay, so talking about stories, I put this guy up here. His name is Daniel Craig, but he plays a particular role. Does anybody know who this is? Everyone knows who this is, James Bond. And he's one of the James Bonds, that's absolutely right. And what do you associate with this character? Style?
Elegance.
Elegance?
Masculinity.
Masculinity, okay. Versatility?
Raw masculinity.
Raw masculinity. When he's coming out of the ocean, yeah.
Mystery.
Mystery, okay, interesting. Courage. What else?
Intelligence.
Intelligence. What? Sorry? He's a winner. Think a little bit more broader now. So we've got his personality traits down. He's also somebody who...
Successful.
He is successful. He's also funny. You know, the James Bond, he has a lot of one-liners that is funny, so it pulls you in. He usually falls in love with somebody who dies, so it makes you have empathy for him. Even though he's a stone-cold killer, you still think, oh, poor guy. Okay? But he's also associated with other things. He's associated with Omega. He's associated with Aston Martin. The reason why I'm telling you this is because James Bond is not just a character in a film, but he's also a brand-selling engine. He's used to sell things because the story of James Bond is so alluring. Its representation of courage, intelligence, smartness, elegance, that Omega wants to be associated with that story. And here's the interesting thing. So you've got this watch here. If you go into a small little Swiss watch shop, and you go to buy this Omega watch, you probably pay around 6,000 to 8,000 euros for it. Okay, it's a reasonable price. It's a brand new watch. Okay, it represents James Bond. No, but this actual watch went up for auction, and it was expected to raise $25,000. It's second-hand. It's not brand new. But when it actually went for auction, it sold for around 128,000 US dollars. Now, it's just a watch. Again, you know, it's not something that's special. It doesn't really have a laser beam in there. Okay. But people are prepared to spend a premium on a product because of the story that it's associated with. Okay, so I want to show you this. I want to introduce you to these guys. I don't know if you've ever heard of them before, but it's Joshua Glenn and Rob Walker. They are brand analysts and contributors to the New York Times. And what they did was they did an experiment. It's called 100 Significant Objects. You can go to their website, have a look at it. It's really quite fun. And what they did was they said that stories are such a powerful driver of emotional value that their effect on any given object's subjective value can actually be measured objectively. What does that actually mean? They're essentially saying that you can put a value on an emotion. You can quantify it, okay? And this is what they did. So they went out, they had a budget of about, I think it was about 125 to 128 euros, that's it, right? And they went out and they bought 100 objects from places like thrift shops, you know, second-hand shops, places like that, also eBay. And so they bought all these products, and they spent no more than, I think, $1.50 for each product. Some of them were cheaper than that, okay? They then went out to 100 prominent authors, and they said, hey, here's an object, write me a story about it, right? They did so. They took the objects, they put it back onto, with the story back onto eBay, and they sold it. Okay? Here's an example of one of the objects. It's some sort of plaster mold that's been painted. This is an extract from one of the stories. You can actually go on there and have a look. They're kind of weird, some of the stories. So not for children always. Okay. Here's another little object that was actually sold there. It was purchased for $1, and when they actually put it back onto eBay with the story, it made $51. Okay. In fact, what they found was that of the initial budget that they started off with, which was $125, they actually managed to make something like $2,600. Or even higher. It was an incredible amount of additional value that was created as a result of this. Go check it out. It's very interesting, and I think it's really cool. Okay, so that's really me talking about the importance of storytelling. And I will tell you this now. I get to listen to thousands of ideas, business ideas. I'm a senior innovation consultant at a high-tech incubator in Graz. I'm working with cutting-edge technologies and entrepreneurs with a lot of passion and motivation and skill for their business. They come to me, okay? I teach them how to tell stories, right? How to find the narrative behind their startups. Because what you will always find is that when a company comes to you and starts to give you a pitch in the first instance, the first thing they do is they act like a weather reporter. And they just simply tell you what's on the screen. And it's so boring. It's so boring. I have no idea what, very often, what is the main goal of giving me all this data and all these figures? So what I do is I work with them, and we try to find this narrative. So what I want to do is I want to just quickly show you just a few tips. This is only like a few things in which I like to say to them. But basically I say what to consider when pitching. Number one is be a little bit generous with your energy. Okay? Go out there and be enthusiastic for what you burn for, right? And show people this. It's so important. So be generous with your energy. Okay. The other thing I did was I thought, okay, there has to be a really cool way of mentioning what are all the important things that begin with the same letter. Okay? It was a goal. So I came up with these 6 C's to successful pitching. Okay, so number 1, a pitch needs to be clear. It needs to be very clear what it is that you want to express and what you want to communicate. Don't try to make it too complicated. It should be credible. Okay, so credibility can be overcome by building certain trust between you and the people that you're pitching to, but that can be done through showing traction. And importantly, credibility can be shown by actually seeing a red thread. The amount of times I see people turning around and saying, hey, we're operating in a market of, I don't know, 5 billion euros. They then turn around and they say to me, hey, we're going to become a 100 million euro company within the next 5 years. And then you ask them, you say, who's the biggest player on the market today? And what is their revenues? And then they have like 5 million or something like that. And you say, well, is it really, is the technology, and it can happen, is your technology and your approach that game-changing that you're going to supplant the incumbent that's been in the market maybe for the last 20, 30, 40 years? Okay, so it's got to be credible, coherent. So this is something that we tend to find a lot, you know, so people say, hey, this is the problem, and that's why I created this solution. And the problem is that the solution doesn't address the problem, because the problem is way out there. It's like an idea that they think is really cool and charming, but it's not actually the problem that they're addressing. There's the next one is to be concise and to the point. So don't overly complicate your words, and be creative. There are many different ways in which you can give a pitch. Creativity can also start in the way in which you design your presentations, okay? The way in which you visualize important information, data, for example. And you're probably thinking, okay, where's the space for the 6th one? Yeah, well, I call that Craigsness. I had to find something beginning with C. What do I mean by Craigsness? Well, I'm talking about you have to be authentic. You have to be yourself, right? So it's about, you know, everyone has their own personality, everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses, and it's important that you're yourself, okay? So I call this Craigsness. Okay, so this guy here, Aristotle, he basically said some 2,000 years ago that there are 6 key elements to drama, or to tragedy actually, but drama and storytelling in general, with the first 2 being the most important, and that's being character and plot. So in a pitch, you are the character, you're playing a particular role, okay? And the plot is the structure of your pitch. Right? So you have to really think about what is it that you want to communicate, what is the foundation of your pitch, and how do you bring it to a key point where you can actually put down an ask and get something from your audience. But today, and this is something that Aristotle did not really talk about in his 6 elements, is audience. It is so important today when giving a pitch to an audience, and I'm hoping that you guys are the right audience as well for this, given the fact that you've done the endurance test of listening to a whole bunch of other talks and you survived, kind of suggests so. So the audience is something that's really important. So many companies will go up in front of an audience and they will give a presentation or a pitch. They're going to try and get buy-in. This makes sense, right? But what tends to happen is that they try to please everyone. And that's the wrong way to think about it. If there is, like, within an audience of 100 people, if there are only 5 people that can help me to do business or to invest in my business or could potentially co-found with me, those are the 5 people that I need to try and address. So I have to be very strategic in terms of how I address the audience. And the other important thing is make sure that you have an ask at the end of a pitch that somebody can give you. There's no point going into an audience like this and saying, hey, well, I don't know, I'm seeking a beautiful French house somewhere on the Côte d'Azur. You know, now, the chances are here that being that we're in Romania, that there's no one here with that sort of offer for me. So there's no point asking for it, right? So make sure that you can ask, that you ask what the audience can give you. Okay, and now we're coming to just a little last thing that I wanted, Liviu said, hey, listen, we're talking a little bit about business legacy and something that's important, and I thought, okay, what is legacy all about? Well, and how can you transfer certain core ideas from maybe a founder who was a parent, maybe who's developed a business, and how can you transfer that on? It's a very complicated business. We already had a nice conversation yesterday about the complexities and the emotional challenges that legacy includes, and why consultants are needed sometimes to help navigate that path. But I wanted to talk just quickly about the visions and missions and values. Okay, these are very often asked whenever you're creating a business plan, but people ask also these core things. So what is your vision? So here's a quick sentence. So basically the vision is the mountain top. It's the place that you're trying to get to, right? I work with startups often and ask them, what is the vision? Okay, and I put it in a very simple way. What would the world look like if you had infinite resources to do what you want to do? Okay? This is something that's really key because it informs me about what is in the mind and the mindset of the entrepreneur. Okay? It may not necessarily be realistic or achievable. It's a vision at the end of the day.
Because you have resources.
Yeah, exactly. So it's exactly. Exactly. But you have to think big. A vision is big. It's expansive, it's exciting, and it's the one thing that you're going to get buy-in, especially when you go out and you try to find an investor. They want to know what is the vision, and they want to understand what is the mentality and the mindset and the ambition of the founders. Okay, so I'm going to play a little game here, and I'm going to ask you to participate. So here, this is a vision statement. It's to be the Earth's most customer-centric company, where customers can find and discover anything they might want to buy online. Which company do you think might have that vision?
It's Amazon.
It is indeed. It's Amazon. Okay. I was actually having this conversation also outside. I was asking about Bolt and what Bolt's vision is. Okay, and Bolt is to make cities for people, not for cars. And then, of course, if you expand on that, they want to encourage a more shared economy so that people don't actually have to own privately their vehicles. So they have their own vision too. It's big, it's expansive. It's a vision of the future, okay, that they're aiming for. Then we have the mission, okay? So people often get the mission wrong. The mission is, how do you intend to achieve your vision? Okay, so what are the tools and resources, and what is the vehicle by which you will achieve your vision? So a mission statement declares the organization's purpose and how we will set out to achieve the defined vision. So here you go. Here's a mission statement, which is to enrich people's lives with the programs and services that inform, educate, and entertain. Please bear in mind, I am British. BBC. It is indeed the BBC. You guys are so good. Okay, so exactly. Okay, so and then we have the values. Now, things about values I think are extremely important, right? So we always ask our startups also to think about what are the values, which are the SDGs, are something that they can contribute to. Not all of them, but if they can find 3 or 4 or 5 different SDGs that they can focus on, and how does that reflect in the way in which they build up their company and their company culture? So here's one for you. So it's the operating philosophy or principles that guide an organization's internal conduct as well as its relationship with its customers, partners, and shareholders. And I've put this one here. I love this one. To strive to minimize our negative impact on the environment. Okay, interesting. To strive to show a deep respect for human beings inside and outside the company and for the communities in which they live. And we seek and support non-violent ways to achieve peace and justice. We believe government resources are more productively used in meeting human needs than in building and maintaining weapons systems. No.
British.
No.
Supermarket.
No.
So what's hard?
They are building the
Doing something like this.
No.
okay.
No.
Producers of farms. Weapons.
No. It's actually, you can, go on.
Carrefour?
Sorry?
Carrefour?
No. No.
But give us the industry, please, so we can.
Food. It's Ben and Jerry's.
Ah, okay, that's grandma.
I really had to, I wanted to show you this because I like the fact that it's about weapons. It throws people off, but basically it shows that these guys, they have, but I think Ben and Jerry, they were kind of like two hippies who came together, you know, and wanted to create this new fun expression of ice cream in Ben and Jerry's. And this was one of their philosophies, you know, and they brought it into their company. Exactly, exactly. But it sort of also goes along the way to expressing that, hey, listen, you know, even though you may be providing a tasty ice cream as a dessert, you know, you can have values which don't necessarily always seem like they align perfectly well with the product that you're selling. But still, it's a philosophy that they want to have within their business, and it means something more. Ultimately, all of these things, they help to inform what is a company culture, and this is like a whole topic by itself in terms of like ensuring that people have access to have an environment and working environment and want to stay in a place that they feel proud to work for and all this, and want to go out and invite other people to come and work for it, from their friends, for example. These are all wonderful things to think about, and they are informed by things like your vision, your mission, and your values. And I want to finish with one story, because this story is, I listened to it, I found it was really great, and it can be used to describe the importance of topics such as diversity, equity, and inclusion, and why it's important to think about the diversity within your companies, within your teams. And it's a picture of an elephant. Actually, what I want to tell you is, maybe you've heard of it. It's a Dharmic story, and it talks about an elephant and several blind men. And essentially, these blind men, they've never seen an elephant before because, of course, they're blind. They've never been introduced to one before, but they get presented with this elephant. Now, the one man goes up to the trunk and he's feeling it. He goes, it's like a snake. Okay, and the next one goes along and he's feeling its tusks and he's going, it's more like a spear, some sort of weapon. The next one goes up to the belly and goes, no, it's a wall of some kind. Another one grabs the legs, says it's more like a tree, it's rough, you know. So, and then the last one is on the tail, and he's like going, no, are you sure? It feels like a rope, right? And the fact is that they are all right, you know. Their perspectives are all accurate and true, okay? And the story is that everyone has their own truths. And it's only by bringing in different people with different perspectives can we truly create companies that hopefully can sustain and last into the future in a good way. So that's pretty much everything from me. Hopefully it was a little bit entertaining and nice for you guys. I'm sure that... Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward, if you're sticking around, to having a few conversations after this as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.